Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, it's such a privilege to be here. My name is Olamide Taiwo, and I will be one of the moderators for today's event. I welcome us all once again to this impactful and life-changing webinar. I can see Dr. Joni. I can see Dr. Chinomso. You're welcome. I can see Rosaline Ngozi Kanu. You're very welcome. Mrs. Fatima, you're welcome. Ms. Behu Ilya, I can see everybody and I acknowledge our presence, all of us. Um, I'm also elated to announce that we have participants from all over the world, from different parts of the world. Yes, we have participants from Africa, from Nigeria, from America, from Europe, and yes, I welcome us all to this event once again. Right about now, before we delve right into why we are here, I would like us to express our expectations in the comment section. How excited are you for this webinar? What are your expectations? What would you like to learn? What would you like to glean? Why are you here specifically? For me, I'm here to be inspired. And more than the inspiration, I am here to learn how to impact my patients in a more focused way. And learning from someone like Dr. Joni, I am sure that I am going to get the best of that. I'm going to get the best of that. All right. Yes, I can. Well, very welcome once again. And at this moment, I would like to invite Mrs. Fatima for the objectives. You're very welcome. Thank you once again. I am Olamide Taiwo. Thank you.
Fatima Adam, can you hear me? Fatima Adam, can you hear me? Yeah, on mute. Okay, I think we'll proceed. Olamide, over to you. Oh,
Okay.
let me check.
Yes,
Okay, can you hear me now?
yes, I can.
All
I can.
right.
Thank you so much. Yes, Mrs. Fatima, I think you were trying to unmute yourself. I think
Yeah,
you
she's
are on mute.
Yeah,
Yes,
I've done that.
I
Yeah,
hear you
greetings.
now.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from this side. I'm Fatima Adam. I'm one of the moderators of this event. You're all welcome once again. So we will be starting the program. Dr. Watson, welcome. Dr. Mozichi, you are also welcome. So our program for today is Leading the Way, Evidence-Based Community Cancer Care. And our speaker for today's event is Dr. Watson. So this event is, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So this event is taking place with the help of Dr. Watson and Oncology Nursing Society of Nigeria and also Dr. Nwozichi Chinonso. So I think we can move on. Dr. Chinonso, please help us welcome help us with the welcome address.
Okay. Can you all hear me now? All right. So my name is Chinomso. Dr. Watson, we've been communicating over the years. Yeah. I'm the founder and the president of the Oncology Nursing Society of Nigeria. So I would just give a brief address to welcome everybody. It's really a great pleasure to welcome each and every one of us to this important webinar titled Leading the Way, Evidence-Based Community Cancer Care that is being presented by our distinguished guest lecturer or guest presenter, Dr. Joni Watson. As we gather here today, I am reminded of the significant progress we have made together as a community and the transformative impact that we are capable of achieving through our collective and collaborative efforts. Our society was founded on the principles of advancing oncology, nursing practice, research, and also education so that we can meet the need and unique realities of our patients and communities. Since the inception of this society, we have continuously strived to provide platforms like this so that we can exchange knowledge and can also inspire innovation among our members and also to empower them to do greater things ahead. So today's topic is really critical to the objectives of this society. And we know that the knowledge you're going to share with us today will equip us with the right strategies and knowledge that we can use to deliver comprehensive cancer care, especially within the community setting. I'm confident that this session will be valuable. It's going to really give us the tools that we need to gain new perspective and also develop actionable strategies to forge ahead with our society. So as we move forward, I want to remind us that our collective commitment to advancing oncology nursing is what drives this society. I encourage you all to engage actively, ask questions, any question you want to ask, listen carefully, and also derive critical insight from what Dr. Watson is going to share with us today. So thank you all for your dedication and for being part of this incredible journey. Together, we can continue to lead the way in transforming cancer care in Nigeria and also globally. Enjoy the session and let's make the most opportunity to learn and grow together. Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to introduce the speaker and I call on the moderators to introduce the speaker.
Yeah, so I'll take over from here. Once again, I'm Fatima Adam. So it's my privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker today in the person of Dr. Joni Watson. Dr. Joni Watson is the co-owner and the chief vision officer of the Creating Collective, a leadership and healthcare consulting service dedicated to advancing organization excellence. So she also holds a consulting associate faculty appointment at Duke University School of Nursing in the Doctor of Nursing Practice Executive Leadership Specialty. That's awesome. So in addition to academic professional roles, Dr. Watson also served as the editor of peer-reviewed clinical journal of oncology nursing and is a highly respected voice in the oncology and healthcare community. So as a doctorally prepared oncology certified registered nurse, that's to tell us Dr. Watson is a certified oncology nurse. So Dr. Watson has a wealth of experience across operational, nursing, and executive roles, working with interdisciplinary teams in nonprofit healthcare and educational organizations. Her contribution to the field are further demonstrated through her numerous publications. She publicized a lot. So in peer-reviewed journals, blogs, and books, including the award-winning Your Guide to Cancer Prevention and Hope Over Discouragement, a 35-day devotional. So Dr. Watson isn't just gorgeous, but she's also powerful. As we all know, knowledge is power. So Dr. Watson is also a passionate podcaster, hosting the end of a top healthcare podcast and co-hosting Hope Chronicles, a podcast dedicated to bringing light to dark places. We all love to see light at the end of the tunnel. So that's what Dr. Watson do. In addition to her professional achievements, Dr. Watson is an active volunteer. She contributes also to faith, health, and community organizations. Outside of her work, she enjoys reading, writing, and cherishes time with her family. She's a family-oriented person as well. So, including her husband and 3 children in Dallas, Texas area. So, Dr. Watson is a wonderful person, and I believe you'll be learning a lot from her today. She's a mother, she's a nurse, she's an oncology nurse, and she's gorgeous and powerful. So, please join me in welcoming Dr. Joni Watson. So, Dr.
Thank
Joni Watson,
you.
welcome.
Thank you so much, Fatima. Olamide, thank you so much for your help as well today. Dr. Noazichi, thank you so much for inviting me and being an incredible colleague and spurring oncology nursing all across the globe. I have been looking forward to today and spending time with all of you. Thank you for ending your day with me, whether you are at home or somewhere in your community, or you may even be at work still. So thank you for ending your day with me because you are starting my day. And what a beautiful way to start my Thursday. So thank you so much. I am going to share my screen and get this all set up. Let's see. And then let me share this. Okay. So I think everyone should be able to see my screen. If you can see my screen, if you could just nod your heads for me. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for your time. As I mentioned, for ending your day with me. You're starting my day in such a beautiful way. Now, I am a native Texan. I am born and raised, and normally I have to work really hard to control my accent, my Southern drawl, okay? I am keenly aware of my Southern drawl, and you have an accent, so do I. I have a deep Southern accent, and it especially comes out when I am either upset or excited. And truth be told, both community cancer care and evidence-based practice are exciting to me. I love it. So you are bound to hear my Southern drawl come out. I might even let a y'all slip out. That means you all in Texas slang. I might even let a y'all slip out. But if you would, just love me, colleagues. I know that I am among my colleagues and friends, my people, oncology nurses who are dedicating their life's work, the mission of your hands and your hearts and your minds to care for other people. And so I'll be a little bit more like my authentic self today. And I'll go ahead and say, hey, y'all, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. I just celebrated, and I will say, Dr. Noazichi, if you could help me, I cannot see the comments. So if someone's commenting and asking a question, you are welcome to interrupt me at any point. Please feel free to do so. We'll reserve some time at the end for questions and answers too. But if you feel like you need to join in, please feel free to do so. This is just colleagues having a great conversation today. So Fatima mentioned in my introduction that I am married to my forever boyfriend. I just celebrated 25 years of marriage to him. He's the anchor of our home, the love of my life. And when we got married, we videoed our wedding. That was 25 years ago, and we never watched our wedding ever. So for our wedding anniversary this year, we decided to get our home videos transferred to digital files because we didn't have a way to watch our videos anymore. And so we got the opportunity to watch our wedding from 25 years ago with our 3 children. And my daughter, who was 17 at the time, she's 18 now, she could not believe how thick my Southern accent was. And it was indeed much thicker than it is now. I couldn't believe how thick my accent was. And again, sometimes I have to rein in my accent when I'm excited or upset. Sometimes we can live and work in our environments and never realize how beautifully different from others we are. And I hope to highlight that concept throughout our time together. So I shared a link in the chat earlier. If you want a copy of these slides, you can either scan this QR code and receive that, or you can click that link. So however that's easiest for you today, you can certainly access the slides later on through that same link. So feel free to use those slides. So we have 2 objectives today during our time together, and I'm going to do my best to cover both of them. I'm going to intertwine them together, and basically we're going to cover the parts of evidence-based practice and why it matters in community care. So as I worked on this presentation, I got the opportunity to learn more about your beautiful country. Now, I have never been to Nigeria. I hope to visit in the future because I have been reading a lot about Nigeria, and your country sounds absolutely incredible. Now, I know we have a global audience today, so people from all over Africa. We have some from Europe today, some from the United States. And so wherever you live, I know most of you live in Nigeria, you may live in an African country, and I may live in the United States of America, in the state of Texas, but Texas has a big presence. Texas likes to think of itself as its own country within the United States. But let's be real. Nigeria is 33% larger than Texas in regards to land, and you have a population 6 times that of Texas. Texas is a big state, y'all. It's a big state. And imagining a country with a population 6 times that of Texas's 25 million people, you win. Nigeria, you win. We actually have a lot in common. Both Nigeria and Texas are global powerhouses when it comes to oil and energy. We both take tremendous pride in our homelands. We're both melting pots of culture. We both have strong values of family and community relationships. And our homes are made up of resilient, can-do people. We both have rich traditions, and we have strong agricultural roots, as well as booming metropolitan and economic hubs. And so as I learned more about Nigerian food, which I enjoy because I have some amazing Nigerian restaurants around me, I could further see how your cuisine is intertwined in Southern US cuisine. So beyond being oncology nurses, we have a lot in common, and I love that. So let's visit today. In the southern United States, visiting doesn't just mean that you're going to swing by someone's house and drop something off, for example. Visiting is really becoming a lost art in the United States. And I hated to used to visit people with my mama when I was younger because visiting meant we were going to go to someone's house. We were either going to walk or we were going to drive, and we were going to go in their house or we were going to sit on their porch, and we were going to be there a while, right? And there was really no telling how long. So today I do have a time limit, but the concept is still the same. We're going to visit today. We're going to talk like we would if you just swung by my house. I would welcome you into my house for a conversation, to see how things were going, to check on you. We would talk about our passions and things that excite us. I already told you that I love evidence-based practice and community cancer care. I do. I just believe that there's something magical when the people who live in the community work on the care for the people in that community that we know and love, whether that's in Nigeria or Texas. So naturally, we're going to visit about evidence-based practice and community care. So one of the first things that I would do if you swung by my house to visit is I would ask you if you want a glass of tea. Okay, so in the southern United States, if I asked you if you wanted some sweet tea, that would be sweet iced tea. We make the tea hot, we steep it, then we pour the sugar in or the sweetener, and then we refrigerate it or ice it. And just like in Texas, where I was born and raised, I'm astounded when southern US establishments don't have sweet iced tea. It's so weird to me. It happens all the time in Texas and elsewhere throughout the South. I'm shocked when I go to southern restaurants and there's no sweet tea. It just doesn't make sense. These things go together. This would be like me visiting Nigeria, and every location I visit does not have Zobo. Texas and sweet tea go together. Nigeria and Zobo go together. So the same is true about evidence-based practice and community care. The healthcare environment, the community healthcare environment without evidence-based practice is like a southern home or restaurant without sweet tea, or like a Nigerian home or restaurant without Zobo. It's just not natural. It shouldn't happen, right? So evidence-based practice in nursing is a systematic approach to providing high-quality patient care that is based on the best available evidence. And it involves three things. And you're going to hear me say these three things over and over and over again, okay? It involves integrating clinical expertise, that's you, patient preferences, and the most current research evidence to make informed decisions about patient care. Clinical expertise, patient preference, and the most current research evidence to make informed decisions about patient care. We take all three of those things together to create evidence-based practice in nursing. So really, evidence-based practice in nursing is about providing the best possible care to patients by using that systematic approach that's based on evidence, patient preference, and clinical expertise. So evidence-based practice is kind of like this. Now, I don't know if you have drawers like this in Nigeria, but we have drawers like this in Texas for sure, in the southern United States, all across the United States, really. It doesn't matter if you have a huge home that's ready for a photo shoot, or, you know, whatever home you live in, you've got one of these drawers that you just kind of throw everything into, right? The same is true with evidence-based practice. And sometimes we don't want to show people what our evidence-based practice looks like. But this is what it looks like. I do healthcare services and build programs all across the United States right now. And all the time when I start at an organization, the nurses and the nurse leaders are always a little hesitant to tell me what their evidence-based practice processes look like, sound like, feel like, How do they implement things? But I promise you, this is what it looks like everywhere. It's a practical collection of a lot of different tools we can access when we need them to focus on patient preference, clinician experience, and the best available evidence. Now, there's a lot in these three things, and we're going to talk about each element, but we need them all at different times. So, why on earth do we do evidence-based practice? Why do we talk about it all the time? Well, everything we do is for people. And in the Southern United States, we have a phrase, a little idiom that we say, your mama and them, your mama and them. So we might say, hey, how's your mama and them? Tell your mama and them hello, okay? It really just means, and it might really mean your mama and your family, or it might be your community, the people around you, the people in your neighborhood, the people at your religious organization or your school. Everything we do is for people. It's in pursuit of improving patient care, which is quality and safety, the cost of care, patient satisfaction, clinician satisfaction, and equity. These 5 things make up what we call the quintuple aim of healthcare. And really, our pursuits in evidence-based practice to care for other people is not to sacrifice one of those quintuple aim pieces for something else. We need to look at quality and safety and the cost of care and the patient satisfaction and clinician satisfaction and equity. We don't have to pick one thing or another. We can aim high for a high bar to improve patient care. So evidence-based practice is really all with people in mind. Now, I added a couple of stock photos here, but then I have a couple of personal photos. So this top picture is a little bit dated. It's from 2012. This is my dad with 2 of my 3 children. Those 2 little kids are now 19 and 18 years old. But my dad had just grown a watermelon. You know, they were out picking in this garden. And then the bottom picture is a picture of Neon Big Tex. He's the sort of mascot for the State Fair of Texas that we have every fall, where we like to fry foods that should never be fried. But the whole reason I put those on here is because that's why I do my nursing. It's why I do my care. I do it not just for my family, but for my neighbor's family. I do it not just for my state, but for the other states around me. I do it for my country. We love our people. We love our communities. We love our states and our regions. We love our countries. Evidence-based practice is not about PICO questions, although that is important. And we will talk about PICO questions in a little bit. Evidence-based practice is not about literature reviews, although that is important. And we will talk about that in a moment. Evidence-based practice is not about statistics, although that is very important, and we will talk about it. Evidence-based practice is about people. If there's one thing you take away from this talk and our time together, it's evidence-based practice is about people. It's why we do what we do, to provide better care for the people that we know and love and create ripples of care for other people. So evidence-based practice gets easier and more familiar the more you're engrossed in it. And it has taken me a long time to learn the difference and the nuance in some things. For example, between a paired t-test and an independent t-test. Now, I read about 1 or 2 nursing or scholarly journal articles a day in my current role as the editor of CJON. I'm reviewing, I'm doing all sorts of things. To this day, I still look at statistical tables to understand and to know. I still look up statistics questions almost every time I read an article because the context is always a little different. And it seems I always have a question. And it's okay. I've been an oncology nurse for 21 years. It's okay if you're not sure if an independent sample is the same as an independent design. It's okay. You don't have to know that all the times. There are some things with evidence-based practice, like statistics, or study designs that make us nervous, right? Because we don't know sometimes, and that's okay. We keep practicing and we keep learning until we do know. We come to things like this. We surround ourselves with colleagues and experts to help sharpen us and strengthen us because we can learn new things, no matter our ages, no matter our experience. Again, we use the best available evidence, the clinical expertise, and our patient values and preferences. So let's talk about the nitty-gritty elements of evidence-based practice. Let's dig a little deeper. So imagine evidence-based practice as a recipe for a perfect home-cooked meal, whatever you're thinking of. You've got your base ingredients, evidence, clinical expertise, and patient values and preferences. And you need the right amounts of each to create a delicious and satisfying meal, to create evidence-based practice. Just like a recipe, evidence-based practice requires a careful balance of these three elements to ensure the best possible patient care. And just like yourself or your neighbor or your auntie or your granny, once you know a general recipe, you don't really need to measure anymore. You can eyeball it, right? Or you can feel the right amount of seasoning to add. For those who are great cooks, right? You can taste something and you can create a recipe just by pouring in and feeling of what's the right amount. The same is true with evidence-based practice once you get accustomed to it, once you become an expert. And it's only by continuing to practice and doing evidence-based practice that you can do that. So the first thing we need to do is to ask the right question. And a PICO question is how we do that. Now, if you're not familiar with the PICO framework, it is an acronym, PICOT, population, intervention, comparison, outcome, and time. And you explicitly put these elements into a question. This is one of the first steps of evidence-based practice. So if we were to take an example, we can create a PICO question, for example, in Nigerian women living in rural areas who have been diagnosed with cancer. That's our population. We're going to be very explicit as possible. And then we're going to look at the intervention. How does the implementation of a mobile telehealth intervention for follow-up care, C, comparison, compared to traditional in-person follow-up care, O is the outcome, impact cancer treatment adherence and patient satisfaction? We're very explicit on what outcomes we're looking at, and we include the time over a 6-month period. Now, we can compare a PICO question to a Southern dog. Now, we have two types of dogs in the South, those that can hunt and those that think they can hunt. Now, this is Marigold. She is a sharp dog, and we love her to pieces. She thinks that she can hunt. And for suburban Texas, she does all right. That's a stuffed fox in her mouth. But Marigold and this dog are not the same. They are not the same in the Southern United States. This dog can actually hunt. We actually have a Southern phrase, a Southern idiom about dogs like Marigold and other things that don't make sense. And I'm going to teach it to you. You might have a similar phrase, I'm not sure. But the phrase that we say in the Southern US is, that dog can't hunt. That dog can't hunt. It literally means that's not a hunting dog and she can't hunt. But what it means when we use it in a conversation about another non-dog topic, right? We're not talking about a dog. Someone might be talking about a strategy or an intervention. And you might have someone on the team say, that dog can't hunt. What that means is that idea, that plan, that argument is weak. It's ineffective. It won't succeed. It can't hunt. That's not what it does. It implies that the proposed solution or reasoning doesn't have the necessary qualities to achieve a desired outcome. So next time You write a PICO question, ask yourself, does this dog hunt? Can this dog hunt? Have I defined each of those pieces enough so that it can search? Because just because it looks like a PICO question doesn't mean it can hunt like a good PICO question. And a good PICO question will make your literature review a breeze because you will know exactly what you are working on and what evidence you are hunting for. So let's talk about hunting down the evidence. There's a lot here. Searching for evidence, levels of evidence, databases, and tools. And it's one of the fastest ways for evidence-based practice to go off the rails, to fall by the wayside. When I start talking about literature reviews and databases and levels of evidence, people's eyes kind of glaze over. But again, it's an important part of evidence-based practice, right? You're going to take your clinical expertise along with your patient preference, and then you're going to combine it with the best available evidence. And you got to be able to find that evidence and appraise that evidence to make that recipe. So you need to know where to look and how to evaluate the quality of the evidence that you find. Oops. Now, when it comes to the levels of evidence, we all have these levels personally and professionally. And this may be old information to you, but the more you think about it, the easier evidence-based practice work becomes. And so there are a lot of levels of evidence models. This one actually has 6 levels of evidence. The Johns Hopkins model has 7 levels of evidence. Some have 5 levels. It doesn't matter which one you use. I would just say if you are using one, pull it out and use it every time you're reading an article. That should be your very first step of reading an article, is determine what level of evidence it is. If you aren't using a level of evidence pyramid when you're looking at evidence, I would encourage you, find a framework that you like and use it. So I'm going to use this one and kind of just go through it for you. I'm going to talk about each of the 6 levels. It's like a pyramid with a lot of low-level evidence on the bottom and a tiny amount of great evidence, the most rigorous evidence at the top of the pyramid. So at the bottom, we have level 6 expert opinion, because those are a dime a dozen, right? We are all experts here. If we took a topic like oncology care or symptom management, we'd all be able to generate something because we're all experts. Even if you just graduated and just entered into care, you're still an expert. We all have our own personal and professional experiences that shape our opinions. And so if we go up one more step, we have level 5 evidence, which is case theories and case reports. And these are exactly what they sound like. These are individual cases of, let's say, a particular symptom or a particular cancer, for example, or descriptions of a group of people with that cancer or with those symptoms. The next step up, level 4 evidence, is case-controlled studies. The description is in the name, case control, where we look at a group of the case population and we compare it to individuals without the condition, a control group. These are observational studies. They look for differences in the groups. One more step up, level 3, is cohort studies. Again, these are observational studies, but these follow a group of individuals over time. They're cohorted together, and they compare outcomes between those exposed to a risk factor and those who aren't. Level 2, we're getting on up there into high quality evidence right now. RCTs, that's randomized controlled trials. These are experiments where the individuals are randomly assigned to an experimental group receiving the intervention or a control group receiving the placebo, or in a lot of cancer care, the standard treatment. The randomization helps eliminate all kinds of bias and error, which strengthens the research. And lastly, at the very top, we have systematic reviews and meta-analyses. Systematic reviews follow a systematic methodology to create comprehensive reviews of existing research. And they pull everything together in one review article. Meta-analyses are still at the very top of this pyramid. I just didn't write them on the chart here. They are statistical analysis methods that combine the results of multiple studies to draw a broader conclusion. And when you find a systematic review or a meta-analysis on the topic in your PICO question, man, this is like hitting gold. This is good stuff. You know, it's the highest level of evidence. So let's go back to our recipe example. Let's imagine you're trying to decide on the best recipe for a meal. Expert opinion would be like asking your grandma who's been making the recipe for decades for her advice, right? You want her recipe. A case series and case report would be like hearing stories from folks who swear by a particular recipe. They all love one particular recipe for something. Case control studies, that's like asking folks who love the meal and those who don't about their health histories to see if they have a difference between them, right? Or case controlling them. Cohort studies would be like following a group of people who always eat the recipe and see how their health compares to those who don't. Randomized controlled trials. This is like setting up a taste test where folks are randomly given different recipes of the same dish to try and compare. And then at the very top, systematic reviews and meta-analyses would be like your granddaddy who's tried every dish under the sun for that recipe, and he's compiled a definitive guide. He's got the recipes in there. He's rated the recipes. He knows where the ingredients came from. Just like with the levels of evidence pyramid, the granddaddy's advice is generally considered the most reliable, while personal anecdotes might be less so. But sometimes your grandma's secret recipe is pretty darn good, okay? So we don't discount or discredit any level of evidence. It all has its place. And I say that specifically because oftentimes evidence starts out from a low level and it can jump in between all of these levels over time, right? So sometimes you might be in clinical practice and you see something that stands out as interesting and curious. And you're like, you know what? I'm not sure why that happened. I'm not sure why this is happening, but I'm going to write an expert opinion on it. I'm going to write a case study on it to share it, right? So the evidence might start with that because we've seen one example or two examples of something. And we publish those things in CJON, and so do many other peer-reviewed journals as well, because we want to try and see, are other people experiencing this, right? And then it also helps our PhD colleagues identify, you know what, we really haven't studied this. We don't have any randomized controlled trials. We don't have systematic reviews. We need to do some case controlled studies, some cohort studies, some RCTs to build that evidence. So it all works hand in hand. We never discount the levels of evidence. It all has its place, and community cancer care can fit in every single one of these levels of evidence, no matter where you live. Now, if you've ever done a literature review and actually gone hunting for the evidence, this is what academia likes to tell you what it's like. This, my friends, is what Amazon sells as Southern Tupperware. It's beautiful. It helps organize your food. And I had some of this growing up. My mom did, although it was bright orange, sunshine yellow, lime green for the 70s and 80s. This is real, by the way. However, this is what real Southern Tupperware in the United States looks like. We reuse all of our containers, okay? We are scrappy folks in the South. We are not going to let things go to waste. This is what it's like to do a literature review in the real world. It looks like it's butter, but no, it's mashed potatoes from last week. It looks like it should be a whipped topping, but no, it's a soup from last week. You just have to open it up and take a look to know exactly what's inside. And that, my friends, takes time to do. That's called appraising the evidence. We assess the validity, the impact, the applicability of the research findings. Yes, it's a lot of reading and synthesizing, but we're not afraid of hard work in community cancer care. It's what we do. Going back to our recipe example, once you've got your ingredients, it's time to check the quality. Just like you'd taste a tomato to make sure it's right, or you'd inspect a fish to see if it's fresh. You need to critically appraise the evidence you found. You need to ask yourself, does this research make sense? Is it relevant to my patients? And can I trust the results? Because not every recipe with the same ingredients makes an excellent meal. Banana pudding is a great example. This is actually a picture of banana pudding that I made one year for a holiday in my family. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to taste Southern United States banana pudding. I know I'm 100% biased, but it's delicious. It is glorious, okay? If you ever come to Texas, you're in the Dallas area, you better let me know. I will make banana pudding for you, okay? My family asks for banana pudding on special occasions. And if you'd asked me and all my neighbors to make our banana puddings, and we all came back for a taste test, they probably taste very similar, but they'd also be a little bit different, right? Now, I told you I was born and raised in Texas. The United States is a big country. I have not been to all of the states in the United States. I'm in my mid-40s. You might be surprised to learn that. I don't know. But I went to New York last year for a conference, and it was the first time I was in New York. Some of you probably visited New York before I did, okay? I was able to meet up with a student I was teaching, but I hadn't had the opportunity to meet her in person yet. And so, again, it's my first time in New York City, which is overwhelming. That New York City is an overwhelming, overstimulating city, especially to this Southern girl. And we went to dinner, and then she started showing me around downtown New York. And as we were walking, you know, there's Times Square, all of these big monuments and locations that I had seen on TV and read about. And as we were walking, she paused and she did one of these things. Oh, you know what? You should try. There's this place and they have the best banana pudding. And I paused and I said, you know, I'm from Texas, right? As if to say, girl, please, no. She assured me that this banana pudding was going to rock my world. And we stood in line, y'all. We waited for this banana pudding. And I could have made an entire pan of banana pudding for what this one scoop of banana pudding cost me. And so as we got our banana pudding, I took one bite of that banana pudding and I smiled and I thought to myself, oh, bless her, which sounds great, but in the South of the United States, it's not a compliment. It's kind of a put down, right? We kind of say, oh, bless her. Like she doesn't know better. She doesn't know any better. And she said, right, it's so good. And I said, I cannot believe that people come from all over the world to visit the United States, to visit New York City. And they stand in line for this. This banana pudding is at every Southern potluck. I can give you the recipe to this banana pudding right now, and you never have to pay 15 US for one scoop of banana pudding again. Y'all, this would be like you coming to visit me in Dallas. I already told you, we've got great Nigerian restaurants. And me telling you, you know what? You should try the jollof rice at this place in Dallas. You would look at me like I had lost my mind, right? Why? because you are an expert on your cuisine. You might even make jollof rice, and your recipe is probably better, colleagues. That's what I want to share throughout this time for the rest of our time together. Community care, especially community cancer care, in lots of places, rural Texas, Nigeria, name another country, name rural places in the United States, it's often looked at as if it's less than. But oh my goodness, friends, you are the experts. You know your patient's preferences and values, and you have the best available evidence at your fingertips. Your recipe for care is probably better than most people's, okay? So we're going to lean into your recipe. Once you know, you know, and you can appraise the evidence for quality and relevance. You can assess the validity, the impact, the applicability of research findings, because you have to be able to scrutinize in the Southern United States. And if I had to guess, I would guess it's the same in Nigeria. In Texas, we go too far, too many potlucks not to be good scrutinizers. You can't just eat anything at a Southern potluck. You don't know who made it. You don't know what's in it. You got to ask some questions. Your literature review is your Southern potluck. Once you see everything there, you have to ask some questions to know what you're going to consume. I don't know. I've never been to Nigeria. Is it the same in Nigeria? Do you need to scrutinize the recipes and dishes? You don't know who made it. You don't know where it came from. You don't know what's in it, right? You need to be able to scrutinize what you're consuming. That's what we're talking about. You've got to be able to scrutinize the evidence to know what you're consuming. Is it appropriate? So in the case of evidence, what you are going to apply to help with the clinical decision-making and care, you're going to apply the evidence that you found in your clinical practice. So again, think of it like adding the perfect blend of spices and seafood to your recipe. You're taking your knowledge and experience, that's your clinical expertise, and you're combining it with the best available research evidence to create a delicious meal, taking into consideration the palate, the allergies of your patient, right? What do they want? What do they need at this time? So any cook knows that if you're cooking and your recipe needs something, 9 times out of 10, it needs one of your go-to ingredients. Now in Texas, that might be something like garlic, onion. We use a lot of cheese, a lot of butter, sweetened condensed milk, bacon. There's a lot of that in Texas. Seriously, we got to ask ourselves, could I add one of these things and the recipe be better? The answer is probably so. And I'm guessing that you've got go-to spices as well, wherever you live, that when you're cooking and you taste the recipe, you have the ingredients right beside you to give you that extra deliciousness, that extra, that is good, right? That's what happens with evidence-based practice. You have the ingredients right beside you, okay? Don't discount your community. Don't discount the area that you're in, the area that you're living in, the area that you're working in. That's where you are. You've got the ingredients to improve evidence-based practice. So once you apply the evidence, you have to then evaluate the effectiveness of evidence-based practice interventions, and you have to do it rigorously, colleagues. By measuring outcomes, you can determine if your recipe or your evidence-based practice intervention was a success. Really, we don't wait until the end of a recipe to taste a recipe, right? We don't wait till the end of our evidence-based practice to really evaluate our evidence-based practice. We're doing that all along in the real world because original research, like randomized controlled trials, they control for everything. They're not the same as implementing evidence-based practice in the real world. Controlled studies are not the same as implementation science. I don't know about you, but have you ever read one EBP study of an intervention that had one result and then another study of the exact same intervention that had a different result. Of course, it happens all the time. We have tons of evidence like that. That's because we implement evidence-based practice in the real world, which is a complex adaptive system. It is never, ever the same. And one little difference can create statistical significance or not. One little difference can create clinical significance or not. It's okay. It's the real world, friend. So this is why I encourage people not to get worried and to lean into evidence that doesn't always work. It's why we publish evidence that might not have statistical significance, right? Because implementing evidence-based practice takes patient values and preferences into consideration with your clinician experience. The intervention might not work for one population, but it just might work for yours. Your intervention may not work here in Dallas, Texas, or in my rural hometown of Corsicana, Texas, but it might work for your population in Nigeria. My intervention for my population for my rural hometown might work for my hometown, but it might not work for Nigeria. It's both valuable because we're taking all three of those things into consideration: the evidence, our patient population's preferences, and our clinical expertise, right? You are the expert. I like to evaluate outcomes using different frameworks. There's a lot on this slide, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but you do have it in the handouts. I like to use two different frameworks. I like to use the IOM quintuple aim. The IOM quintuple aim, which is at the bottom: safety, quality, patient experience, cost, clinician experience, and equity. Or I like to use the AHRQ domains. You might hear it called STEEP care: safe, timely, effective, efficient, equitable, and patient-centered. And really, what you can do as you look at your evidence-based practice and what you're measuring, you can create a table or identify which of these outcomes aligns to which of these different domains. And that will help you identify what you are frequently missing, because you might be constantly assessing patient experience, but maybe you're missing looking at the cost of care, or maybe you're missing looking at safety and quality, right? So I look at these things all the time when I'm appraising evidence. And then once you've done all these things, we have to pitch in and contribute back to the evidence. That's community care. There are things we learn in community care that other care settings will never learn. There are things you learn in Nigeria that I can never learn in Texas, and vice versa. We are experts in our spaces and communities, and it's okay to lean into that and to own it. And sometimes we get too academic and we make evidence-based practice this far-reaching thing. Evidence-based practice is what we do every day. Let's not lose sight of it. It's our norm. Again, it's like a Nigerian household in Zobo, Nigerian restaurant in Zobo, a Texas restaurant in Sweet Tea. This is our norm. These things go together, especially in community cancer care. So once you've perfected your recipe, you might share it with your friends and your family. And in evidence-based practice, this means contributing back to the evidence base. We get the opportunity to share our experiences, our successes, failures with others. Remember, in community cancer care, you're the expert. Your insights can help improve quality care for patients everywhere. Your recipe is better because the potluck, the literature review, it needs your jollof rice or pounded yam or pepper soup or suya. It needs it. Your recipe is better, friends, colleagues. So many times, I don't know about you, we read articles, at least this is what I do to myself, and I think, or I say out loud, I could do this, right? Or we already did this. We just never published on it. You're right. Your recipe is better. You are doing evidence-based practice. And if you are doing evidence-based practice and doing all of these pieces, and you're not contributing back to the evidence, let me spur you on, colleague. Let me challenge you. Your recipe is better. We need your recipe in the potluck, in the literature review. So let's talk about the role of evidence-based practice in community care, community cancer care. Again, it's everywhere. This is just a normal part of our work. It's what we do, but we have to take care of it. It's like a cast iron skillet. We use these a lot. It's a sturdy, reliable tool, and it can help you cook, bake, fry, or even protect your house if you need it. But like a skillet, evidence-based practice requires the right ingredients. It requires proper care and a bit of know-how to use it effectively. We don't want someone putting our cast iron skillets in the dishwasher or using soap on it. No. We have a seasoned skillet, right? We know how to take care of it. Too many times in healthcare, we treat evidence-based practice like a big cast iron skillet. It's heavy and clunky. We don't know how to take care of it, when really it's pretty low maintenance and it will last forever. But I know implementing evidence-based practice can be tough, y'all. I know it. Implementing evidence-based practice in community care can be challenging because we have resource limitations, resistance to change, lack of training. Too many times we think that bigger healthcare systems or other countries or other states have it all together. Let me tell you, they don't. And we often think that everybody else has more resources. They don't, I promise you. However, the unique opportunities offered by smaller organizations, such as deeply held missions, strong relationships with patients, they can help overcome these barriers. Our size can benefit us because we can be more agile. We can be quicker in patient work and care. We're scrappy. We're resourceful in community care, right? We know how to make things stretch. We know how to get things done and to work around problems. Sure, we might have one person who's kind of doing 3 jobs, but the pasture that looks greener on the other side is greener thanks to all the manure over there. They've got 6 people doing 3 jobs and wearing 3 hats, and goodness, that brings a whole different set of issues. Now, I love biscuits in the South. Biscuits in just about every gravy imaginable. They're deceptively simple to make. Simple, but not easy. Biscuits are basically flour, butter shortening, and buttermilk. Sure, we can add some salt, some baking powder, baking soda, but we don't have to. And Southern white gravy is almost the exact same ingredients. It's butter or grease, flour, milk, and some seasoning. But oh my goodness, it's so simple, right? Simple, not easy. It's hard to make great biscuits and white gravy. But once you do it about a dozen times or so, you get the hang of it. But getting started, it's a mess. You can make an even bigger mess in the process if you're not careful. Evidence-based practice feels like making biscuits and gravy. But I actually saw a recipe for puff puff, and it's not too far off, okay? Just a couple of ingredients. But it makes me think it's super simple, but not easy. It might be difficult at first. It might be a mess at first. It might be hard at first. But once you know how to control it and do it, it gets easier and easier and easier. We're all working on the future of evidence-based practice in community cancer care. And the future of community cancer care is promising. We have emerging trends like digital health tools and telemedicine, big data analytics that are shaping the landscape. And as healthcare professionals, we have to stay informed, adapt to new evidence, and collaborate across disciplines to effectively implement evidence-based practice in our community cancer care settings. And again, we do some pretty amazing work and care in community care, things that other organizations only dreamed of. We're halfway around the world from each other right now, but again, we have a lot of things in common. This picture is a great example. Both our homelands are agricultural giants. And as I was looking at some of the agricultural work in Nigeria, there were pictures like this. I could have easily pulled this picture from Nigeria or the field in my parents' hometown. A lot of people imagine community care or community cancer care like this. And indeed, we have some of this spectacular beauty. But more often than not, colleagues, our community care, our community cancer care looks more like this. It is connected, it is forward moving, both in Nigeria and in Texas. So evidence-based practice is essential for providing the highest quality of care to patients. We can adopt and advocate evidence-based practice in our community cancer settings, and we can contribute to improving patient outcomes and enhancing the overall quality of care in our communities. So I want to encourage you to jump in and start mixing things up. We all start somewhere, and we're all learning and growing. Now, again, I'm totally biased in favor of community care, cancer care. I think something magical happens when the people who are in that community take ownership of that care and improve that work and care for the people that we know and love. Our patients are not just mindless faces and names. These are our neighbors. These are our friends. These are our family members, our elected officials, our civil servants, our teachers. We get the opportunity to change lives forever using our clinician experience, patient preferences, and the best available evidence. Your recipe is better, friends. We need it in the evidence. So I'm going to pause. That's what I have to share with you for today. What questions do you have for me?
Okay. Wow, this has been really mind-blowing. This has been really mind-blowing. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this way. I mean, it's been excellent. Please express your appreciation for Dr. Watson in the comment section. Wow, thank you so much for this impactful session. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has learned how to make Texas sweet iced tea. Thank you so much. I personally appreciate your approach in the presentation. We're all able to connect so deeply to what you were presenting about, and we really appreciate that. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Watson. So I'm sure we've learned a lot. We've learned about evidence-based practice, what it is. We've learned about the elements of evidence-based practice. I'm trying to revise in my notes here. We've learned about the PICO question, the population, intervention, comparison, outcome, time. We've learned about how to search evidence, the levels of evidence. She went through the 6 levels of evidences. We've learned about appraising the evidence, applying, and then evaluating outcomes. And she wrapped it all up with role of EBP, that's evidence-based practice in community cancer care, and our duty as professionals in staying informed to further advance evidence-based practice in community cancer care. So it has been wonderful. And this is the time for questions and answers. Dr. Watson is available to take all questions. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section, or you can just unmute yourself by raising a hand and we will allow you to speak. The host will allow you to speak. It's time for questions. I'm sure we have a lot of questions in the house. Just if you have questions, just raise a hand. And yes, okay, Rosalind has a question. Any other person? Let's take questions and then we'll take them. Okay. Rosalind, you're allowed to speak
Hi everyone, my name is Roslyn Ogunkunle. It's such a pleasure to join, and thank you again, Dr. Watson, my very good friend. I've known Dr. Watson, I don't know, I think since I've been in oncology. So thank you for speaking today, and thank you for making this very relatable. You must have done a lot of research, just like you. It's not really a question.
Yes.
What I wanted to ask is for our colleagues listening from Nigeria, what do you think the challenges will be to implementing evidence-based practice in your area? And I know that practice setting is very different. I'm still very familiar with the process and things going on in Nigeria. As we currently speak, I have a family member in Ado-Ekiti Hospital, Abuad. So I am very familiar with some of the challenges that we currently experience. So I would like to ask, what are some of the challenges that you think you might encounter, or that might be like a roadblock to implementing EBP, and how can we support to remove some of those roadblocks? That's my addition, not really a question, maybe a question for those in Nigeria, pretty much.
Okay, thank you for that question. Dr. Watson, would you prefer to gather all the questions before you answer, or you want to answer question by question?
I'm happy to answer question by question. Absolutely. Whatever is best for the group.
All right. I think we prefer question by question. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, I think what she asked was, what do you think might be the major roadblocks for implementation of evidence-based practice in Nigeria?
So from my perspective, I know that sounds like Rosalind was asking maybe those who are living in Nigeria, but I just want to encourage you that your barriers, you probably have some barriers that are unique to you, but I also want to encourage you that there are other groups and organizations and people all across the world who experience the same barriers as you, right? So, we have limited access to resources, financial and people resources and supplies in certain areas of Texas. I think about my hometown that doesn't have certain parts of care, even. I think about the resistance to change, all of the other systems that we have to think about from government. Got it. So, there are lots of different barriers, but I will defer to those who live and work in Nigeria on the barriers that may be in existence there.
Although I do not live in Nigeria currently, I spent majority of my early years in Nigeria. One of the major barriers that I see is the lack of support for nursing innovations or nursing contribution to the healthcare system. For example, which I'm still going to refer the question back to you later on, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Watson. The major one is when we do evidence-based practice and we find new solution to a problem, the buy-in is really very low, especially with regard to our professional colleagues, for example, the physicians and other people who lead the healthcare system. So without that process, nurses become discouraged because when there is no support from other members, you feel there's no point really engaging in evidence-based. So we rely mostly on whatever the physicians or whoever is in power says. And secondly, another problem that I see is that we rely heavily on evidence from the Western countries. And I love your presentation today that you said that our own ingredients are really very, very good, are better. Yeah, because although you said the banana pudding, even though I enjoyed it while I live in Austin, Texas, but I still prefer my Nigerian suya, my Nigerian puff puff, and other stuff. So, but when we are heavily dependent on evidence from the Western countries, which are not contextualized to our own realities, that may create a disconnect with the essence of evidence-based practice in Nigeria.
You are spot on with everything that you're saying, and that's absolutely the summary of what I hoped for this group to draw from our time together. You are so right because I can't speak from a Nigerian perspective. That's not my lens on the world. But I grew up in rural Texas, in a small town, and so I can speak to what care looks like in rural parts of the United States. And for much of my career, I have a doctorate degree now. I have 2 master's degree. I've published a lot now, but there were times in my career where I would move from a larger city. I lived in Austin, Texas, the state capital of Texas. I lived in Austin, Texas for about 7 years. And I made a decision at a point in my career to move from Austin back closer to my hometown, to a much smaller part of Texas. And people in Austin, my colleagues, thought I was bananas, that I had lost my mind. Why would you leave this metropolitan area of Austin to go to a community setting where it's surrounded by rural areas? The reason I do it is because I know those people. They deserve the best care. Just because you are in a rural part of the world or in a suburban part of the world does not mean that you should have to have subpar cancer care. No, we get the opportunity to contribute to our communities because we know and love those people. And I inadvertently built cancer programs that took care of my family members. And I could rest assured for my family members and people that I know and love in that community that they were going to get exceptional cancer care because we had built it together. And because we know the barriers to that unique community, we could build the programs and the services to work around those barriers, right? We already knew the solutions. We were the experts for that community. And too many times, I will say this, I get hired as a consultant for a lot of healthcare systems. And I will step into those organizations and those communities that are very different than my lens on the world. And the first thing I do is ask for the people who live there, who do the work, because they know the work. They know the problems and they also know the solutions. The answers are in the room there. The answers are in your community. You have the answers. So too often we rely on evidence-based practice in looking at the published evidence, and that's great, and that's a piece. But don't forget about the other 2 pieces, your patients, preferences and values, because those impact your care, and your clinical expertise. You are an expert. So, Dr. Nwazichi, you hit the nail on the head. You've got the ingredients. You are experts to your community. Your recipe is better. And we not only need you to do it in your community, but we need you to publish and present on it, colleagues. We need you to go a step further, okay? Because there are people that are relying on your expertise. You're doing the work, but you got to contribute back. Your recipe is better. We need it.
Wow. Wow. That is absolutely amazing. I believe this is a call to all of us on this call and every other oncology nurse out there, especially in Nigeria, to participate more in research, nursing research, by conducting researches and even participating by reading up about upcoming evidences. Our recipe is better, but we have to publicize it. We have to let everyone know that this is our recipe, this is what we come up with, and this is what we have. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have a question in the comments. Someone is asking, in what ways can local cancer care providers adapt evidence-based practice from high-resource settings like the United States to better fit our unique healthcare environment?
That's an
Yeah.
excellent question. I would say take whatever you can from the evidence that makes sense. Again, you're the expert. If it does not make sense to your community and to your population, you can, of course, do a couple of different things. You can try it and see if it works, right? We do trial and error all the time and get comfortable with the concept of failure. Failure doesn't mean that you have failed. Failure just means you have found a different way to do something, right? So often I will say to teams and organizations, we're going to try it. And if it works, we're going to keep it and we're going to iterate on it and change it. If it doesn't work, we're going to write that down and we're going to change it and try something else. But if you're trying something from the United States in Nigeria and it doesn't work and you have measured those outcomes, publish that work, okay? We have a bias in scholarly journals that we tend to only publish things with statistical significance, okay? We're working really hard to publish work that doesn't have a statistical significance. It might not have worked. But again, we have lots of articles and lots of evidence that say, hey, this intervention worked for this population, but it didn't work for this population. That's okay. We work in complex systems across the world in healthcare. So pull what you can, use what makes sense, and then shift and transform based on your community and need. But publish your results back so that we can all be informed. And the reason why we need that is because in the United States, while we often don't have a lot of resources, we often are wasteful with the resources that we do have in many ways. And we may be able to learn from other organizations and groups of people to be better stewards with our resources. There may be better ways to do things. Oftentimes, there's a Western mindset that we're the best. I don't know if y'all feel that around the world. I certainly feel it. But that's not true, right? We spend the most on healthcare in the United States, and we rank around fifth or sixth in the world on patient outcomes. There are others that do things much better for us. And so that's why measuring patient and system outcomes are important, because we need to know if we do this intervention, does it make a difference? You may do the exact same intervention with a different resource in your community and get a better outcome. If that's the case, I want to know about it because I need to be able to save money for my family members and for my organization. So use what you can, adapt what you can. It's what we all do with evidence, right? I can't do the same things that Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City can do. They have different sets of resources, different physician and interprofessional groups. But I can use some of those components and tweak the things for my community. So use what you can and then transform the rest into your recipe.
So, Dr. Watson, you will receive more manuscript from Nigeria soon.
Yes.
Excellent. I am so glad. Well, you have my commitment to helping novice authors. So CJON is a great place to publish as a novice author. But yes, we need your evidence. We need it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think Mr. Mustafa is raising his hand.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Watson. That was a really tantalizing lecture, laced with varieties of mouth-watering recipes. Really, really, really appreciate it. I want to comment on the barriers, as was rightly asked by Roslyn, with respect to our environment, the Nigeria setting as a case study. I think one of the major problems is the attitude of nurses towards research. That has been a problem since nurses don't want to venture into research. And the other colleagues, talking about the physicians and other, have been doing this. So whenever you are not keen into such activities, definitely when you bring in something and you want to implement, it will definitely be rejected or not be accepted. So really to bring evidence-based practice research, and you need to collaborate, you need to work with the team to come up with those, and the evidence are very clear. So once they are there, definitely they will be accepted. But once you don't participate, you don't expect anybody to take you serious. So, but I'm very happy now. Things are changing. Nurses are coming up, and with this kind of Dr. Chizo, our president, ONS, this is kind of a stimulating, kind of stimulating the nurses to stand on their feet and keep with the trend. The second thing, again, that I observe is actually the issue of time prioritization. Most of us don't actually allocate time to a specific activity. So we don't do things randomly. We come to work, we attend to our patients, and before you know, we go back home. We don't prioritize. We don't give time to research. We don't give time to other very, very important things that will actually improve our professional career and so on and so forth. And for the implementation, I don't know. I don't know. This is actually a question. I don't know how you see it, but we really need to have this to solve some of our peculiar problems. Um, you may decide to stand out among your colleagues and come up with evidence-based research you want to actually implement. But once you bring in, you discover that the administration generally, we're not talking about the team, but administration of your institution and so on will now reject it and don't want to implement that. And so I know at a point in so many countries, other settings, other climes, they may have experienced the same kind of issues before they overcome it. I don't know whether you have experienced same in your setting, even though you have advanced to a certain level. But what do you think? How do you think we can convince our managers, of our institutions, the administrators, on how to implement these findings from our evidence-based research? Thank you so much.
Mustafa, that is a great question loaded with a lot of different things. So let me attack it from a couple of different areas. So the reason I used the example of sweet tea and Texas restaurants and homes, Nigeria, restaurants and homes in Zobo, is because these things go together, right? I walk into a Texas restaurant and I ask for sweet tea and they don't have it. That's weird to me. That's odd. Community cancer care and evidence-based practice belong together. We cannot do community cancer care for the people that we know and love and respect without evidence-based practice. They just belong together. And it's our responsibility as nurses on this together to raise the bar for ourselves and for our colleagues, okay? So when we go into our everyday practice, whatever we're doing, we need to ask ourselves, what does the evidence say about how I'm administering this drug? Or what does the evidence say about how we're handling patient falls, for example? Whatever it is in your work, ask yourself, what's the evidence on this? And spur one another on. I guarantee you that you and your leaders, you're tracking all kinds of metrics and outcomes, right? Whether it's financial, patient-related outcomes, you get the opportunity to ask the questions, what are these outcomes? Where do they fit in these frameworks? Are we looking at quality and safety, cost of care, equity, clinician satisfaction, patient satisfaction? And you get the opportunity to stretch the practice environment yourself. You're the cook. You're seasoning that environment. So yes, it's difficult. there are organizations just like you're explaining around you that exist in the United States, right? They really don't care about evidence-based practice. They're just trying to get by financially for sustainability. As professional oncology nurses, we get the opportunity to influence our environment and the care because that's what we've been trained to do. And yes, it is hard and difficult, but I would encourage you, if your leaders are trying to effect change on a particular thing in the United States, it's probably going to be a financial element. Great. Let's look at the financial elements. What is the cost of care for XYZ? So that might be an easy way of entry. Let's take a look. What does the evidence have any information on the cost of that care? Yes. Oh, well, let's try some of that stuff. No, they don't. Oh my goodness, this is an opportunity where we can contribute to the evidence and publish on it because we have the outcome measurements. And so I would encourage you to influence your environment in that way. Perhaps start with what your organization wants to change and move the needle on. You are experts. You are professional nurses. And so I've certainly worked in environments where physicians are the leaders and nurses are kind of looked down on. I totally get that and understand that. No one knows nursing care like we know nursing care. We are the experts. So it's okay to lean into that and let our physician colleagues lean into the medicine side, but we're going to press into the nursing side, okay? We're not going to go to New York City for banana pudding. No, we're going to come to a Texas country girl's house and get banana pudding. We know nursing better than anyone else. And so I would encourage you that you are the change. We are the change in our environments. And integrate evidence-based practice into everything that you do. Ask yourself, what's the evidence on this? What are we measuring? Can we contribute back to the evidence on this? Again, it's messy when you start it. Like making biscuits, like I said, flour everywhere, stuff everywhere. It's all over my hands. But once you do it over and over and over again, it gets easier to do. And it might take weeks, it might take years, but you will get better at it. Great question.
Yeah, I want to add that things are changing gradually now. Physicians are now seeing the importance of incorporating the nurse's voice into decision making. Interestingly, would you believe we have physicians on this call that are, this is very, very lovely. And I've also received a couple of calls from physicians who want to collaborate with nurses to strengthen, our voices. So I believe with time we'll get there. Things are changing gradually, but we also need to play our own part to facilitate the process. Thank you so much. I think we have another.
Sorry. Doctor, please, can I add to the comment you just made now? Really, things are really changing. I participated in the International Cancer Week commemoration, which took place 2 weeks ago, and I was invited to be part of a session, which is the review of the national policy on hospice and palliative care. I was the only nurse, while all the other members of the team are professors, medical professors generally. So I was the only nurse. That shows that things are changing, and it really, really, I agree with the point you just made now. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Yes. Looks like we have a raised hand. Dr. Bamidele is raising his or her hand. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, you can speak. Yes.
Okay. Good evening to everyone. I want to say thank you to Dr. Watson. Dr. Wosiji, good evening. It's been a long time.
Evening. Yeah, thank you.
How are you? I just want to add that one of the problems we are having in Nigeria is lack of proper mentorship. In nursing, I think a lot of us are still struggling with research. And while trying to advance our knowledge in nursing, some of us don't really get that adequate mentorship. So that's I'm raising this because of the last speaker that talked about nurses being afraid to venture into research and all that. I want to say that it's because a lot of people have that fear of unknown, fear of what to do and what not to do. Will people be there for me to help me through and all that? So I think we still need that training, seminars, and a lot of it on research so that people will have that knowledge, because you cannot give what you don't have. And yes, that's why I just want to raise that I don't know how it can be done, but I'm sure a lot of people like me, we are ready. We want to know that research, we want to carry out research so that we can have these evidences that we are talking about and being able to imbibe it into our practices, either in education or in clinical practice. That's just my little comment. Thank you for this beautiful presentation once again.
Absolutely. You make a great point that we need people around us to help sharpen us and pull us to the table, right? And so, yes, that happens in the United States as well. I will tell you from a clinical journal of oncology nursing standpoint, we are relaunching our writing mentorship program in a couple of months. So, keep your eyes and ears on the website. I'm sure others can share that out. But really, the goal of that is to be paired with an expert author to really help walk you through. If you already have something that you're collecting measurements on and you're working through and you want to publish it, but you've never published it, that can be intimidating and scary. And so this program helps match you with expert authors to help you publish in CJON. But I would say too, there are probably colleagues on this call who are experts, right? And we get the opportunity to also raise our hands and say, hey, I'm here. I can help you. And so, Dr. Nwizichi has my information. I'm happy to help support, but it's really up to us to create the support for ourselves. And so, we can do that for one another because our profession is worth it.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your contribution, ma'am. I'm sure there will be measures put in place to encourage research. In mentoring upcoming nurses like us who are not so vast about the research process. And yes, I believe with that we will advance. We are so sorry we will not be able to take any more questions. Yes, we'll be moving on to the next segment now. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. I would allow the next moderator to take over now for the announcement. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. It was a delight. Thank you for starting my day in such a wonderful way. I appreciate you.
Very weird. It would expect me. I think it's Labakino.
Salako, can you hear me? All right. Let me just make the announcement so that we'll move on. The only announcement we have is that next week, exactly 7 days from now, we will be officially inaugurating our society. Yeah, so we expect you to invite everybody. A lot of people are coming. The registrar of the Nursing and Midwifery Council is coming. The president of the Oncology Nursing Society will also be presenting, and a couple of all other, a lot of physicians, a lot of CEOs of companies will be present. So encourage you to invite as many people as possible so that they can attend the program and also be motivated because the direction of oncology nursing in Nigeria has actually seen a new dawn and will be really progressing very fast with the help of God and then achieve a lot of things in the nearest future. So that's the major announcement for today. The invitation is ongoing. If you know anybody you want to invite, if you need a special invitation letter, let us know. We'll just give you the letter as soon as possible so I can invite them. The link is also on the letter, but we'll also be circulating it around shortly so that people can really attend and then see what we are doing, be motivated, and also be part of us. Thank you. So I'm not sure Dr. Watson is still on the call. So I think let me check. She left. So we'll skip that aspect. And then, yeah, that's the closing. The Vice President, over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mrs. Martins Akinlose. Am I
Yeah, go ahead.
being heard?
Yeah,
All right.
we can hear you.
I'm to take the closing remark. Our profound appreciation goes to the Oncology Nurses Association of Nigeria for this great initiative. It's been wonderful and for truly leading the way. All of us who take our time to be part of this laudable visual program, and most especially our resource person, in person of Dr. Watson. We really appreciate your coming. We thank you once again. And another appreciation goes to our highly cerebral president of the association, in person of Dr. Nwezishi. Thank you for leading us through. We love you. Without mincing words, this is an eye-opener for all nurses and cancer advocates in Nigeria to truly elevate our community cancer care with evidence-based practices. I believe we have all increased in knowledge today by the flawless lecture of today. Therefore, what is left for us to do is spread the word, evidence-based nursing practice. Share the message with everyone, and please help to empower the future of community cancer care in Nigeria. Thank you for your time. Till another time. Stay blessed.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you again next week, and then we'll celebrate together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.